everyone. Welcome to A New Direction. My name's Jay Izzo, and oh man, do we have another great show for you. A little bit different show. Typically, I have an author who comes on, and I always say, my show's so easy because it's like I get a great author with a great book, and it just makes it easy for me. And every now and then, I get to do these fun shows where I know it's going to be fantastic because I've met the guest, and we've had great conversations. And, something happened, and it did this week. I had an author who canceled out on me last minute, which happens from time to time. I mean, because I have authors, from all over the world. So my author wound up in Finland and said, can't do it. And I was like, well, okay, we'll figure something else out. So over Thanksgiving, I happened to be by myself because my wife was traveling down to Costa Rica. And being by myself, I get to do, I go down to the beach place and hang out and do some things I don't normally do. And, as you know, I have a gift for gab. I've never, ever said that was not true. It's absolutely true. And go to this place, and I'm sitting down, and this guy comes in, and he sits down next to me, and we're having a conversation. And, typically it's the same thing that normally what happens is, you go, oh, hey, what do you do? Oh yeah, and you find out the guy's a podcaster and he works with leaders. And I go, yeah, I interview leaders too, and I have this podcast. And we start talking about leadership, and it was so natural and so amazing. And I said, man, I got to have this guy on my show. And it turned out less than a week later, I get to have the guy on the show because it's just how it works out for me. Good things just work out. So, John Palumbo is his name. I'm going to introduce you to him in a second. And as we're talking, you've listened to the show because we're 360 plus episodes that we've done this show. Probably a third of them or more have been leadership books that I've read and have shared with you over the course of time. And it's always been the same question. Here are these great leadership books, and there's something like somewhere between 1,000 and maybe 3,000 leadership books written a year. And we still have problems. And John and I were talking, and it was like, there's this disconnect. There has to be a disconnect. Because why is there between 1,000 and 3,000 leadership books written every year, and yet we still can't get it? We still can't figure it out. Why is that the case? Why is it that we still share the same problems? And this is some of the things that John and I are going to investigate today is, where's the leadership disconnect? Who's being disconnected the most? Why is that happening? And maybe some ideas of how we can help solve that. Now, listen, I'm going to just tell you right now, John and I are not running for election for anything.
That's right.
Okay. We are not, I am not telling you that between the two of us, we're going to solve all the problems. But what we want to do for you is we do want to have you come up with some ideas that maybe will move you off your X. And when I say move you off your X, you know what? You've done things the way you've always done them, right? And you just don't want to change, but maybe moving a little bit, just a little, may make a big change in your business. And that's, and for your people. And that's what we want to try to accomplish today. So let me do this. Let me introduce you to John Palumbo, and because he's outstanding and he's a cool dude and I really like him. John Palumbo is the founder of Bigheads Network, a podcast production company that helps leaders create the bold conversations and stories that companies need to be having, telling, and sharing. He produces both public podcasts, private internal shows for select audiences like the employees, customers, candidates, franchises, and more. John has created, produced, and even hosted podcasts for companies, you may have heard of them: American Express, Harman, Keurig, Korn Ferry, Panasonic, PepsiCo, and more. And he joins us today on the show. So please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. And welcome for the first time, and I know not the last time, John Palumbo. Welcome to A New Direction. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Thank you, my man. Appreciate it. Glad we met. And
Yeah,
I'm glad that author canceled.
Yeah, me too. Well,
I took care of that.
sorry.
I was like,
I don't mean any
on that
offense
show.
to the publicist who sent me the book, but kind of glad that he's not here because
I
it's going to be
sent out somebody. I was like, go take care of that author.
Well, we can kind of take care of that. There is a leadership disconnect. Well, you and I talked about that.
Yeah.
Where do you think it starts? I mean, because you interview leaders, you interview a lot of leaders.
Yeah.
But where do you think the disconnect really starts?
I mean, look, I think there's a lot of nuances to this, and a lot of, I knew what we were talking about today, so I did a little bit of prep here as well. But I think I'll start with let's say a more positive and supportive, angle on this whole thing, which is, I think one of the big things you and I talked about was that there's these leadership themes that just keep coming back over and over. And to your point, why are these books always about these themes of listening and trust and empathy and collaboration? Why aren't they figuring it out? And I think the first thing I think we have to look at is some of these themes are evergreen themes, right? These are themes that are timeless. So, and like I said, I'm going to be positive at the beginning of this, right? So I think there are themes that are evergreen, and the reason they're evergreen is because things are happening. They need to be refreshed. Okay, so things, the workplace is changing. Technology's obviously evolving. Work culture is changing as well. So it makes sense for some of these books to be refreshed and updated. So it's no surprise that some of them keep coming back. And I think we're looking at it going, well, why haven't the leaders figured it out? Maybe they have. Maybe some of them have figured out the way it was, but now they're looking at it through a new lens because they have to. It's sort of like it's like the Breakfast Club, right? Like when I saw the Breakfast Club, I was in high school and I was like, this is high school. These are the people I go to high school with. If they remade the Breakfast Club today, they would have to refresh the Breakfast. It would be a completely different movie, but same movie, but completely different. I even think, like, when it comes to books, and I could have this wrong, but I think recently, within the past couple of years, I believe even Malcolm Gladwell, I think he even refreshed I think it was The Tipping Point or Blink. One of those two books, he did a refresh of it because it needed to be refreshed. So many things are moving. So I think the first thing we need to look at is this idea that, yes, a lot of these themes are coming up and it's like, God, why haven't we figured it out? But maybe they deserve to keep coming up because they are evergreen themes and they do constantly evolve.
I agree with you. I think one of the things, and I want to agree with you on this too. I don't want to just throw leadership under the bus. I don't want to throw all leaders under the bus. So if you're in leadership,
that's coming for me though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to completely throw you under the bus, but you do have to take some responsibility.
Yeah. Oh
right?
yeah.
And accountability for it as a leader, right? And I have a lot because I mean, my show, the listening demographics of this show is a lot of CEOs, a lot of entrepreneurial founders, just it's a lot of leadership people listen to the show and watch the show. And thank you, everybody who's doing that all over the place, by the way. Whether you're watching us live or via podcast, I appreciate you doing that. But I do, and I don't want to do that. But at the same time, there is this issue that just keeps burning in me about, okay, we keep saying the same thing over and over and over and over again. And there comes a point in time where you go, okay, why is it not connecting? Mm-hmm. Why are we not connecting? Because if leaders know what great leadership looks like, then what stops them from actually doing it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like I said, I wanted to start there. I'll dive into a couple other things. I think the second, now when you start to look at it, you say, okay, well, what is the psychology of some other leaders and why? Why do some of these themes keep coming back that aren't evergreen, but they seem to keep coming back and no one gets them done? And I think that's where I think one of the big things is fear. I think these are, there are so many leaders out there who, look, they want to preach this stuff, right? They want to talk this talk. But they're not going to practice it because some of these topics are really scary to them. And so in the book world, I would almost say, these are things that they read, but they don't realize, instead of practice, but don't preach. Right. And I think about, these are themes that I think you could probably talk about forever. So for example, one of the hot ones right now, authenticity, this idea of human leadership. I mean, how many books are out there on so authenticity, vulnerability, all those things. Look, 99% of leaders will talk about this, but they never do it.
Right.
And they don't do it because being vulnerable means you're not scripted, you're not perfect, you're not, and they want to be polished, they want to be scripted, they want to be managed. I always say they want to be art directed. So that's a theme where fear comes into play. Another one is, how many books are about innovation, disruption?
Oh boy.
Right. And right. You hear these words, or just change agents. Look, innovation, changing culture, these aren't things that are easy. These take time. They take patience. And by the way, it takes buy-in. You can't just walk into an organization. You got to get people to rally around that. You got to get stakeholders to rally around that. That's not an easy thing to do. So it's easy to preach, but it's not easy to practice. So, and I think a lot of them look at it and go, I'm almost afraid to do it. They're hesitant to do it. Another one, ongoing learning is one of the hottest topics right now. Everybody talks about it. You got to keep learning. You got to keep learning. And look, everybody looks at that and says, "Yeah, I want to learn on an ongoing basis." But most leaders, they're not going to do it. They're just not going to do it. So I think part of it is, I think part of the reason for some of these themes to keep coming back and not ever get quote unquote solved is because they're just afraid to do them. So that's good news for authors, because now you have topics for the next 300 years that you can probably write about.
Right. No, you're going to keep writing. We all are going to keep writing.
Right.
Well, this falls in line with something I thought about after our conversation. And that was one of the mindsets that people have, and we all suffer from it, by the way. It's called a prevention versus promotion mindset, in that we're more afraid of what we may lose than the possibility of what we may gain.
Yeah.
And I think that it is easier for all of us, and I think leaders in particular, is to say, I know what I got. I don't want to lose that at all. And if I go out and let's say I want to make a culture change, right? And by the way, it has been explained over and over and over again. And here's the line. We all know it. It's been in nearly every other book I've ever read, is culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yeah.
Right. We've all heard it.
Yep.
Whoever you want to attribute to,
yep.
Fine. There's a lot of question about who originally said it. I don't care. We all know that it seems to be a true story. And yet what we find is that leaders will focus on strategy before their focus on culture. And yet we will all come to the agreement that says, if I have the right culture and I have the right people who are trying to do everything that they can in order to improve the business on every aspect of the business, I'm going to have a profitable business. I'm going to have a great business. But then we get back to this prevention mindset that says, you know what? I don't want to push that button. And this is your fear, John, is I know what I got.
Totally.
I just don't want to lose that.
Yep.
Because I don't, and it's the fear of the unknown, I think, of, well, what happens if I do this and it doesn't work?
Yeah. I mean, it's the, it's Stephen Wilson Jr., who's, amazing singer. There's a song called The Devil, and he talks about that, right? We all talk about like the devil, the devil you don't. He's like, they're both the devil. Right. No matter how you look at it, they're both the devil. And it's a genius song, and it's a genius way to look at it. I remember when I heard that song, I got goosebumps. I was like, yeah, that applies to everything. But it really is, that's kind of what you're saying. It's like, and it's a different way of saying it, right? The devil the devil you don't. Right. But I think I'm in my comfort zone, and everybody always says, there's like all these, look, there's so many of these, these little mantras and murals that people put up where it's like the little, the big circle that says, your comfort zone. And then the little circle over here, it says, where the magic happens and all this, you could say it a million different ways, but no matter how you look at it, you go, well, I know what I got.
Right.
I know if I'm polished and I'm getting my sound bites from my PR person or my social media person, I'm going to be fine. Do I really want to go out and take a risk and really be my authentic human self, which always blows my mind, is that leaders can't be authentic.
Right.
It makes you just go, what do you mean? But it's hard, disruption, it's all those things. They're just afraid.
Yeah. And okay, disruption requires change.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, the problem is it requires change.
Yeah.
But leaders are so reluctant to change because of that fear.
Yeah.
Right. So again, it's like, okay, I want things to change, but you're not even in a growth mindset. And by the way, this just general term, right? I'm a mindset guy, right? It's what I do. My psychological background. It's what I do when I coach. I'm a mindset guy, right? And I ask all the time. I ask leaders all the time. I'm out speaking, and I'll say, are you a growth mindset leader? And everybody in the room,
of course,
raises their hand and goes, "Oh yeah, I'm all about growth." Okay, well, tell me about the changes that you're willing to make.
Yeah,
as a leader. Well, hold it here. You can't be about growth and not about change. You can't. You can't.
100%.
It's impossible.
Yeah, but it's funny too, because we talk about the leaders that there is another subset of these leaders. Another reason why I think a lot of this never happens is I'm not so sure they care. I'm not so sure they read these books to actually, I don't think they read them for growth. I think they read them for ammunition. So what I mean by that is, so what I mean is, first of all, I'm not even sure how many of them are out there actually reading the books they're talking about. If you take a leader and they're talking about, I don't even know if they've actually read the book. By the way, I'm not even sure that half of them think about how many of them write books that they don't even write. So what do you expect them to read them? You think they're actually reading a book? They didn't even, the book with their name on it, they didn't even write. They hired a ghostwriter to write. So you can't expect them to read the one that comes from somebody else. But you look at it and you go, well, did they really read this? Or did somebody feed them quotes? Did a PR person, a social media person, ChatGPT, who fed these people these quotes? That's the ammunition. It's like the, it's like these TikTok influencers who are just out there just talking. Sometimes it reminds me of that. They just want that ammunition. They just want the soundbite that can get them through and make them look smart, make them look informed, make them look current, whatever that is. It's like and I grew up in the innovation marketing world, so I have no problem with marketers jumping on a bandwagon. I really don't. I mean, it happens all the time. Sometimes it's actually kind of interesting where they can react so quickly. You take right now, I don't know, kids out there like 6, 7 doing this whole thing. It's like, yeah, okay. But you look at Domino's. Domino's now has a 6-7 deal, right? $6.70. So they're jumping on a trend. It's going to be gone in a week, but that's fine. But it's fine for marketers, but not for leaders. Leaders should not be doing that. Leaders should not be just putting a soundbite out and not have any, not doing it just for attention or for, like I said, ammunition versus growth. I think a lot of them are doing, I think that's a big problem and a big part of this.
I do.
Because we live in that world, by the way. We live in a world of sound bites.
It's true. We do live in a world of sound bites. And we also have to acknowledge this, that, according to the latest statistics, there are fewer and fewer people that actually read nonfiction books.
Sure.
And we're seeing an increase in audible books, but we don't learn as well, by the way. I know it's just audibly, we just don't retain nearly as much information as when we read it. I have a comment here from Stephen Mays, who's a friend of the show, and I want to get to that comment. But I'm going to tell you what we're going to do first. Before we get to Stephen May's comment, first of all, Stephen, stay with us because I'm going to read your comment on the air live here. And John and I are going to discuss what you talked about here. You're listening to John Palumbo, Bigheads, right? I'm telling you, check them out right here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, I got a couple sponsors here. We got to talk about Zoundy, ultimate game changer for authors, publishers, professionals in the audiobook space. Here's the deal. I love them. You know, I have my books in Audible and other audiobook spaces, but here's what's different about Zoundy. With Zoundy, I can actually contact the listener of my book and ask them questions about what they liked, didn't like, what they'd like to see me write next, what's better. I'm just telling you, it's a game changer. And it's so refreshing to hear and interact with those people who are actually listening to my book on some sort of audio platform. So I have a special code. It's zoundy.com/J. That's ZOUNDY.com/J. Use my code JAY25. That's JAY25. Check them out. If you're an author, if you're a publisher, anybody who's professional in the audiobook space, check out zoundy.com, ZOUNDY.com/J. And Linda Craft Team Realtors for more than 40 years. You know what? They've helped people transition in life. And you go, hold it, I thought they're a real estate company. Yeah, but think about it. Every place you've ever lived has been a life transition. They know how to take the stress out of it, but they've been helping thousands of people over 40 plus years do that. And they can help you. So check them out. They're going to help you. I promise they will. LindaCraft.com, LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with my friend John Palumbo and Bigheads. And we're talking about the leadership disconnect. And John, I got somebody by the name of Stephen Mays, who I know, who's watching the show right now. And he says, he's responding to something he said. He said, this is why honesty, courage, and talent are so important, the foundation for leadership. Honesty doesn't guarantee certainty. In fact, it emphasizes uncertainty. Uncertainty creates fear. Courage requires overcoming fear to take action to benefit others without regard to personal consequences. Then, and only then, can you apply all the talent, learning into action. But all the emphasis is on talent. You can be brilliant in your knowledge of mindset, human interaction, culture, etc. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with it. I think there's, when you double click on that authenticity and that honesty, I mean, those are the kind of things that come up. I think, it's funny. There's the talent part of it. And I'm not sure if this is where Stephen was going, but this is kind of how I look at it. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of leaders, and you and I had talked about this, there are the leaders, when we talk about authenticity and vulnerability, and even honesty, transparency, whatever those words are that are going to fall in this, where they're afraid to do it. A part of why there's fear is because of they don't want to look silly to the people that work for them, and to that talent. If that's what Steve, I don't know if that's what Stephen's referring to, but to me, the way I look at it, and I mentioned this to you when we were sitting there talking for the first time. I said, I was always the kid in class who, I was the dumb kid in class that raised his hand and said, what does that mean? I still do that to this day. Like, what does that mean? And people giggle, right? All the kids kind of giggle. And I tell this to my little guy all the time. I'm like, just be the kid that asks the question, ask the dumb question. And when you do that, there's always somebody after class that came up to you and said, thanks for doing that. Right. And I think that is such that for leaders, when I meet leaders, the leaders that I work with have that trait. They're willing to say, I don't even know what I don't know. And here's where the talent part comes in. That everybody wants to work for that leader. Everybody wants to work with that leader. The leader who is willing to say, I didn't know that. Oh, can you teach me that? I don't care about what level you're at or what have you. And so those are the people you want to work with and for, and, and be around. Those are those kind of leaders, but that's scary. And I think a lot of people hear that and they don't internalize. Once again, you hear it and go, yeah, it makes sense, but maybe it's safer not to do it.
There are three things I think you just said in that one statement that are really, really important. First is we want to look competent.
Yeah.
Competency becomes really, really important. I think all of us, there's nobody out there who's listening or watching the show who is going, I feel good about being incompetent.
Right.
It just isn't.
Right.
Right? There's nobody says that. And by the way, we derive a lot of our ego from our competence. So ego becomes part of it.
Oh yeah.
But then you you said it without saying it. And that is, you have to have enough humility to admit that you don't know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that's a common theme, by the way, in the books I've read, but even in leadership where I've come, is that there has to be a level of humility. And in order to demonstrate humility, there has to be curiosity. And so when we stop being curious, or when we're not curious, now we start going into, well, how much humility do I really have? And I'm not talking about false humility. I'm talking about real humility, which leads to my ego, which leads to my competence.
100%.
And all of so all of this starts, and this is why
all connected.
It's why it's such this teasing this out and saying, oh, we're going to solve this problem. It is just not going to happen. But it's really intertwined. But I think it revolves somewhere around that ego thing, competence, humility, curiosity. Those things seem to tease out of it. Just in the statement that you made, that's what I pulled out.
Yeah,
and that's hard to get to, because even book, was it written in the late 90s, maybe early 2000s, was Good to Great by Collins, right? And he talked about he researched over 1,400 companies and basically found less than 1% of them actually went from good to great. And one of the traits that they found was that leaders were humble and yet willing to do whatever it took. They were also drivers, so they were humble. There was humility, and they were drivers, right? And then they had their hedgehog thing. What are we better at than everybody else? That was the other part of it.
Yeah, that humility, I think that's a hard, but you think about leaders. I think when you think about leadership, you think this person, the idea of it, just the basic idea is, I want my leader to know it all. That's not true. That is not true. And by the way, maybe that was true back whenever. Maybe that was the perception and the persona of a leader. It's not now. Now vulnerability is and being curious, like you said, and being humble and asking questions of anyone and being willing to say, I don't even know what I don't know. That's what people want now. I'm sure I do work with Korn Ferry. I'm sure they have studies on this about, about leaders being what the next generation of people coming into the workforce want. That's what they want.
And I think, okay, let's jump on that for a second, because that leads me to something that you've just said here that I want to kind of tease out a little bit, because this was not in my original thought process. So this just in, folks, because this is a brand new thought that I'm developing as I'm going along here. One of the things I think is that when you go back through the 20th century, there was more of a dictatorship type of style of leadership.
Yeah, seems like it.
As we've moved into the 21st century, employees have taken more autonomy for their lives and do not respond to the dictator style of leadership, which I think frustrates some of the older leaders that go, well, I said it, you should just do it.
Yeah.
But think about you and I for a second. Listen, I worked in industries where it was very much a dictator style organizational chart.
Sure.
And that was I worked, and it was crazy enough, it was colleges and universities, right? Mm-hmm. That you would think would be, we're all about learning and we should be open. But the fact of the matter is, the bureaucracy and the politics and the chain of command in universities and colleges is, quite frankly, so bad.
Yeah, it's pretty rigid. Yeah.
That it's so rigid that what you can't do is you can't question the leadership, because if you do, then you're written up as a loose cannon, as which I was. I was written up as a loose cannon because I was questioning, why are we doing this? Mm-hmm. Instead of going, yes, and obey. But it wasn't, but that I'm going, no, I don't know that this is the best idea in the world. But more and more people are like that. And how leadership adjusts to that, I think there's still this title of leadership that feels that they got to strong arm it. And there's this new group of people that go, wait a minute. I don't know that I can respond to that very well. About you.
And I would be really interesting to track that, to where that, and I don't know if you could. I don't know if you could find exactly when that happened. If you ask me, I would say you watched it evolve, and then about, what was it, 15, maybe 20 years ago, crowdsourcing and democratizing ideas, and technology plays into that with open source and those kind of things. This idea of like, hey, everybody can help. Everybody can be invited to, create our Doritos ad, or everybody can be come on board to help us create this or this new technology or whatever it might be. I don't know that that's where it happened, but it seems like at some point things got democratized a little bit, and maybe that was the point where people were like, I don't want a leader that does. I want a leader that does that, not that does that.
Well, I think, don't you think, though, that one of the big changes is that we've become more collaborative and we understand the power of collaboration better, meaning that you have people, if you're a leader, you have people in your organization that have amazing ideas if they're given the opportunity to be able to say them freely.
Sure.
And this is going to start to move into psychological safety, which is a big, huge, a common psychological term that we have now for leadership. And we
should have put that in that. I should have put that back on my first point.
Because that's a big term. But the thing is that we can be far more creative as a group than we can individually.
Sure.
Right? I mean,
that scares some leaders, though.
But it does. But I don't think anybody out there is disagreeing with that.
No.
And so the whole idea of that we can be a collaborative business or a collaborative group really falls on the leader if they're willing to open that up to everyone. And as Stephen has said, that Stephen has jumped in, is that leadership is about influencing others. Power is about forcing others to do what you want.
Right.
Influence is not about power, but it has everything to do with how power should be used. Susan Campbell comes in and she says the uptake of the internet helped the shift of leadership style for sure.
I love Susan Campbell. Hi, Susan.
So thanks, Susan.
She was when I started a company years ago, back in 2000. She was one of my very first clients. She was at AT&T, and we stayed in touch, and we've done a lot of work together. She's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm going to say something else. Stephen says here at the bottom. He says sometimes a little tyranny is good, but then he says most times it is not. I think there's some truth to that, by the way. I think there's boundaries.
Sure. Look, when you're talking about collaborative, a collaborative environment, these are words. Look, some of these are just great murals above in the break room. Right? I mean, come on.
Or
we've talked about this, like act like an owner. Collaborative, but collaboration, collaboration scares some leaders again, ego, because wait a minute, I should know this. Yes, creating a collaborative environment is a big box you need to check. Right. But if somebody else comes up with the idea, does that hurt? Does that make me not look like a leader? And that's what everybody needs to get over. Is the fact that, listen, you have your title, stop it. Like, you're okay. Like I was on the agency side of things for years, where I had to look at people and go, I don't want your job. I want to help you. I don't want your, don't be intimidated by, and I'm not talking about just like people at a client. I'm talking about other agencies and the not created here. It's like, look, I don't want your job. I got my job. I'm good. Right. But there's a fear of, well, wait, I didn't create it. And it was collaborative, but does that make me look like, make me look less than? That's always there for a leader. When you're a leader, you have it in your head that you earned a title and you need to do certain things to maintain that title. And collaboration, while it's one of the mantras that everybody talks about, that's scary as heck.
Yeah. Well, it can be, but it shouldn't be. And
agreed.
I mean,
today it shouldn't be, like Susan had said, right? With technology and all.
No, I mean, because if we haven't, oh, here comes another mindset, right? We've done growth, we've done prevention. Let's go to open. If you have an open mindset, which by the way, versus a closed mindset, and I want people to hear this. This comes from Dr. Ryan Gottfredson in his book, Success Mindsets, and said that so beautifully. What we're not saying here is that you have to compromise your beliefs. What we're saying is soft front, stiff back, meaning that stay with what you believe, but be at least open to hearing what other people have to say and take the best of what you can, because the fact of the matter is you have to admit as a leader, you don't have all the answers. Nobody does.
You don't even know what you don't know.
Right. I mean, you and I are together trying to collaborate this thing, trying to figure out, how can we help people? How can we get them to think a little bit differently? Fact of the matter is we're just two people, and together we don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if we had a large group of room, I'm not sure we would, but we'd have more answers. I'm arriving to more conclusions with you than I would be by myself, just hashing this out.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's where, if a leader, and here comes the vulnerability, but I think if a leader, can say, hey, listen, I don't have all the answers. Right. But you know what? I've got a bunch of people who are really, really smart because I hired them. Now, if you hired a bunch of really dumb people, that's still on you as a leader. But I got to believe that you didn't hire dumb people. I believe that you probably hired really good people who are really, really smart that can help you actually come up with better ideas that can lead to higher profits. Or the other thing, save you a whole bunch of money or improve efficiency, which all can be combined into the whole thing. So you have this resource available to you called the people in your company that we tend to not utilize that resource probably as a leader as much as we should.
Well, I mean, you're coming to another mural on the wall, which is, hire people smarter than yourselves.
Right.
Sure, I'm going to go hire somebody smarter than myself, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to be afraid of them. That doesn't mean I'm not going to be skeptical. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to be, that's human nature where it's, is somebody going to take my job? Are they after my job? Are they that is once again not just humility, it's ego, it's confidence, it's security, it's all those things. The best leaders are the ones who don't just say that that they're going to hire smart people. They do it, and they give those people the autonomy to go run those projects and trust them. And it's hard. I mean, these are themes that are human themes that obviously transcend just leadership. It's a lot of things.
Do you do all these interviews with these leaders for these companies? Have you ever ran across a story? And I'm just asking, have you ever across a story where you're talking to the leaders and they come to this all of a sudden epiphany where they go, you know what? I need to do something different here. Has that ever happened to you in your?
Not during the conversation. I don't work with I don't work with. It's funny when you listed the companies that I work with. I never look at the companies. I just happen to grow up with those people. I just happen to have known these people for a long time. And I work with people I like. They just happen to work at big companies. If they worked at smaller companies, that's fine too. But I work with the people who have already shown me that they want to think this way, because I can't do it. I can't fake it. As a person who's talking to them, I don't want to listen to nonsense. And I also don't want to listen to people who aren't practicing what they preach. And by the way, a lot of you talked about what I do, a lot of the internal podcasts that I do with companies, they challenge the leader. They're designed to do that. They're designed to challenge the leader to do these things. So they're practicing them while we're having these conversations. So I'll just give you an example. I do a show with a few companies or a few people a few leaders I like, and I call it ABC, always be curious. And the whole idea of that is something we've been talking about. Number 1, curiosity. Number 2, ongoing learning. And number 3, humility. That vulnerability. The whole idea is I'm going to bring you people to talk to that you're not the smartest person in the room, they are. And you're going to ask the question. And I want to work with leaders who are willing to say, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't even think of that. And then release that to employees. When employees hear that, they're proud of their leader. They're more proud of their leader than their leader talking over an expert on something because the leader wants to be the leader. The whole idea of it is to humble them and to help them learn. So to me, that's who I want to work with. So no, never really the epiphany during a show or during an episode. It's more I work with them for that reason. I work with them because they've already come to that epiphany, whether I help them get there or not, and whether they're willing to be challenged. I mean, I love leaders who are just like, yeah, let's see what we can do.
His name's John Palumbo. Bigheads. Check them out. Absolutely outstanding. If you're a leader, and I know I got a bunch of you, and you want to do an internal podcast for your organization, for your business, I really ask you to check them out. What's the website that how do they get a hold of you to do that?
You can go to bigheadsnetwork.com. You could also go on LinkedIn and find me, John Palumbo.
Okay, that's awesome. You're listening to John Palumbo, a Bigheads Network, right here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, real quickly, Zoundy, love them. If you're an author, publisher, professional audiobook space, here's the difference between all the other platforms and Zoundy. Fact of the matter is, I can be in touch with anybody who downloads my book through Zoundy, and it allows me to generate ideas. And this is what I love about it so much, is I'm having conversations with what they liked about the book, what they didn't like the book, what they'd like to see me write more about. They have questions about, how did you get through this? How did you do this? And, it's awesome because I'm actually really, really engaged with them. We have a special offer here on A New Direction. It's check out zoundy.com/J, ZOUNDY.com/J. Use my code JAY25. You'll unlock the special savings. It's absolutely outstanding. Check them out, zoundy.com/J. Linda Craft Team Realtors. You know what? A lot of real estate sites out there, I think their website is absolutely the best. I may be biased. In fact, I am. I'm going to completely admit it. I am biased. But here's why I think that is. Yes, they have all the listings and things that you're looking for if you want to find homes and those type of things. But here's where they go the extra effort. They got a hold of a child psychologist to interview about how to move with children. They got a hold of a veterinarian about how to move with pets. They do a show called Real Estate Right Now, talking about real estate matters that matter to you, bringing people in studio, talking to you directly about the things that are interesting you in the real estate world that are happening right now. And so I think because they're on the bleeding edge of technology, I believe that that's the best website there is out there when it comes to real estate. Check them out. They can help you all over the world. Privately, independently owned, not affiliated with any national company. lindacraft.com, LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with my friend John Palumbo, talking about leadership disconnect. We got about 12 or so minutes left of the show.
I do have one more thought for us as far as the people that read books and nothing happens, and I think it's and this is one. I think this is important because I think there are leaders out there who they read the book, right? We talked about leaders who don't even bother to read the book. It's more ammunition and overgrowth, but. There are leaders who read the book and still nothing happens. And I think there's a few things there that I wanted to kind of talk to you about. And I think they're important. I think some leaders, life happens, right? Like leadership life happens. And I always say like inspiration has a pretty short half-life, right? It's you read these books and then you're like, I want to do that. And then things happen. You got to go, you got this meeting and that meeting, and you can't ever get these things done. And I think I deal with leaders who are dealing with this, right? All the time where it's like, we want to do these things, but how do we do them? And I think when it comes to a book, or really almost anything, I think there's a few things leaders don't do that they should do. And I think the first one is they got to document these. You have to, I always say, if it's a book, dog ear these books and not the parts that your PR person gave you, or your social media person gave you, or ChatGPT gave you. When you're reading the books, right, these are the parts that are meaningful to you. The part that I find meaningful in a book might be very different than the part you find meaningful in a book. When you read the book, document it and then discuss it, right? We talked the other day, I'm a conversation guy. Conversations to me, that's what I do with companies. To me, it's I want to help you have the conversations you need to be having and then and sharing. And the way you share them, whether it be internal podcasts or public podcasts, whatever it might be. But it's I think I told you that quote, that Linda Lambert quote, that, one good conversation can shift the direction of change forever. That's true. You have to talk about the things you took from the book. Talk about them with people. And once you start talking about them, you'll start, figuring out, maybe even connecting them to your business, which brings me to my third thing that people don't do and need to do, which is cross-pollinate. And I'm a big cross-pollinator. And it's when you're reading a book, a business book, for the most part, you might be reading a book that somebody there's lessons in it, but they're not directly for your industry. And you have to get comfortable cross-pollinating those back, connecting the dots, if you will, back to your industry. What do they mean to you and to your business and to your objectives? And that's not easy. People talk about thought diversity. They talk about all these fun little words. I call it cross-pollination. But that idea, I challenge so many leaders to listen. As part of ABC, I want that ABC project. You got to go talk to a fighter pilot. Why? Well, you can learn about decision-making, faster decision-making. Now that's a wild one and kind of out there, but when you're reading a book, a lot of these books are specific. What's the hot one now? Unreasonable Hospitality. That's a hot book. Everybody's talking about that, right? It's a hospitality book. But there's a lot of leaders that I talk to that are not in hospitality. They're in CPG and you name it. And they're talking about this book because they found a way to cross-pollinate it back to their business. And yes, the author, Will, I forget his last name, but he built his lessons in a way that do transcend hospitality. But I think you have to be comfortable doing that as well. So I think you do have to document it. I think you have to discuss it. And I think you have to be able to cross-pollinate those ideas. And I think that's why a lot of leaders, they get the chance to read it. Life happens, but they didn't do those three things. And if they did, maybe they'd be in a better spot.
I totally agree with you. I think there's also, and I'm glad because, I wanted to get into this idea of things that you can do and that maybe are a good place to start. And I want to finish the show this way. I've interviewed a lot of Navy SEALs, Delta Force people, General,
Sure.
Right? Blue, was it the Blue Angels, right? Interviewed in their books. And one of the things I've taken with me that I use in my consulting business, I use it to train leaders, is a very simple thing called an AAR. It's called an after action report. And it's 3 questions. And this is how simple it can be for you leaders. You want to engage your people, it's 3 questions. What went right? What went wrong? What could we do better? Do you know that all the military does that at the end of every mission? What went right? What went wrong? What could we do better? And I started employing this with my 14U Tier 1 hockey girls, where we literally sit down after a weekend that they've been on the road in a hockey team and have said, what went right as a team? What went wrong as a team? And what could we do better? It's 14-year-old girls who respond to it because they feel like they're contributing and being a part of the team. It's such a simple thing to do.
Yep.
I think one of the things that, we go, okay, well, okay, what did that do to hurt your ego? It does nothing to hurt your ego. But what you heard was, right, what did go right? First thing, what went right in all of this? What did we do right? Well, we did this right. We did this right. What went wrong? Well, I remember doing this with General John Gronsky. I asked him after the show, let's do an AAR after the show. What went right during the show? What went wrong to the show? What we could do better? And you know what he said to me went wrong, which I found really, really interesting? He said, why didn't we do this earlier? That's what went wrong. We should have done this earlier. Because he said, I don't know why we waited so long to do this.
Yeah.
Right. And then there was little things we could have done better. We recognized that there was little things that we could tweak. I could have asked different questions, or maybe I should have focused on this area a little bit more, whatever it may have been. But it's a way of being able, I believe, a simple way. And I think this is where leaders need to move just a little bit off their X. And maybe you've got something too. And I think you started down that road of there's simple things that you can do that don't necessarily have to question your competence or your ego, but that can move you in that direction of leadership. And maybe that's where we need to start to help them move a little bit off their X.
Oh, for sure. I love that. I love that you took that. You just did what I said, right? You took from the military. I mean, those are my favorite things to do I mean, anybody who knows me knows I'm cross pollination's my thing. I mean, I was I think I even mentioned this to you, like PepsiCo had allowed me to do a show called The Unexpected Professor for college students who they were trying to recruit. And it was all about skills you need in the real world from people that you would never expect. And we talked to a dating coach about networking. We talked to a fighter pilot from Echelon Front, right. David Burke, who's amazing, about decision making. We talked to all these people they would never really hear from. But it was all a way to show like, hey, this is the way PepsiCo thinks. But it's really helpful in the way of taking those lessons. And you need to do that with these books. I think I love that it's almost like the feedback sandwich, right? Where it's like the positive, the negative, and the positive. But one of the things, like I said, for me, I'm a conversation guy. So for me, that's what I do for companies. I want you to have the conversations you should be having. Now, podcasts are a great way to use them. And I've even said to you, I don't care if we do a podcast and no one listens to it.
Right.
I don't care if I do a podcast with a leader and we're talking to an author or whatever it is, right, and no one hears it except you. I would rather everybody hear it because you're kind of connecting the dots and doing those things. But a lot of times we follow it up with, I call them lunch and listens instead of a lunch and learn, which is very similar to what you're saying, which is, hey, everybody listen to this and then come in and let's talk about those things that you learned and what does it mean and what does it mean for our organization. And it's a way to take that next step. But I try to build that into, I guess I would almost say, this kind of conversation based consulting approach that I kind of do.
Well, you said it best with the quote, and every conversation changes us.
Yeah.
There's
no idea that has happened that didn't really start with a conversation or get somewhere with a conversation. I mean, it's the most important thing. But what's funny is leaders will be like, I don't have time. Like when leaders say to me, it's one of the first questions I ask people I work with. You have time to have ongoing? I don't have time for that. Okay, well then I'm not working with you. I don't want to work with you. I have no desire to work with you. You conversations they're not, yes, they happen by accident. And yes, they happen through collisions and all those kind of things and what have you. But you need to put a system. You need to systematize conversations. And that's my job. And I'm not talking about systematize them like your social media person so that you get attention. And I'm not talking about it for your peer. We could work with those people and we could pull clips, right? You'll probably pull clips from this and put them out there and all those kind of things. But I want you to learn. I want to bring you conversations that are meaningful. Will they all be? No. But are you open to having ongoing conversations that are going to help you do X, Y, and Z? Yes. Okay, then we can work together.
And this is a place where we're going to have to stop because we've done an hour, which has been amazing. I knew it was going to go fast because there's another 3-hour show here. So we'll have to do it.
I'll meet you down at that place.
We'll have to have another 3-hour show down there. We'll just have to I'll just bring the microphones down and we'll just do it from there. And we'll just do it. We'll do it right.
I thought that's where we were going to do it.
That's where we're going to do it. Yeah. Well, we have to talk to Lior about that. But this has been fun, man. Thank you for being.
Thank you.
Stephen Mays, Susan Campbell, everybody else. Thanks for tuning in. John, tell people again how they can get a hold of you. because I know that there's a lot of people out there who are going, man, I'd love to do an internal podcast for my company.
Yeah, I mean, look, first and foremost, you have to, if you want to get in touch with me, just know I'm going to give it to you straight. So, if you really do, if you're really interested in having those kind of conversations, or even learning how to do a private podcast, and you don't want to use me, that's fine. LinkedIn, John Palumbo, that's Palumbo, and bigheadsnetwork.com. I'm pretty much, I'm out there. So you'll find me. LinkedIn's always kind of the best place.
I'll have both of those on the write up to the blog post that's associated with the show, so that you'll be able to click on those links and do that as well. John, thank you so much. Stay with me, will you please?
Sure.
Folks, it's the show. You know what I say to you every week? You're in control of three things: your attitude, your effort, and your resiliency. The fact of the matter is, life doesn't always give us what we want and what we expect. But you know what? You are in control of your attitude. It's not always easy. I get it. But you can control it. Take control of your attitude. Your effort is tied to your excellence. I know we don't always have the same amount of energy left in the tank, but how excellent will you be with what you have today? And finally, your resiliency. We all get punched in the gut, punched in the teeth, and get knocked down. But it's up to you to get back up, and we need you to get back up. Why? Because you're worth it, and we want you on the team. You know what? You had a lot of choices. You chose us, and thank you for doing that. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube, and wherever you're listening to the show, you know what? Write us a 5-star review and tell your friends. We appreciate that as well. As I say to you all over the world, you know what that it is? Ciao, everybody.